I know how it feels when your hands keep clutching something that should have been let go of a long time ago. That feeling that if you open your fingers, you'll be losing an essential part of who you are or what you could have been. The knots in your fingers ache, the muscles protest, but you still hold on tighter as if your life depended on it. I know well this silent pain that we often don't even share with our closest friends. Perhaps it's a relationship that ended but that you keep revisiting in your mind, recreating conversations and imagining different endings. Or that dream that didn't come true the way you planned, and now it seems that letting go would mean admitting defeat. It could be a mistake from the past that you carry around like a weight, constantly turning it over in your mind. Or even an idealized version of yourself that you never managed to achieve but can't say goodbye to. You know those moments when you're washing the dishes or driving to work, and you suddenly find yourself thinking about what didn't work out? It's like there's a radio inside your head that always tunes into the same station of regrets and what-ifs. The mind has this strange habit of returning to the places that hurt us, like a tongue that keeps touching a sore tooth. We all have our secret chests of unresolved things. That promotion that didn't come, the friend who walked away without explanation, or the harsh words you said in a moment of anger and now can't take back. We keep these things as if they were treasures, when in fact they are anchors that keep us stuck in waters we should have sailed past. The curious thing is that we often pride ourselves on this ability to hold on. We call it loyalty, perseverance, or determination. We tell ourselves it's strength, when in fact it may just be fear disguised as virtue. Fear of the unknown that exists beyond the familiar, even when the familiar causes us pain. There are things that, no matter how hard we try, were never meant to remain in our hands. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to give advice to others about letting go, but when it comes to ourselves, every finger seems glued to what we want to let go of? We see clearly when a friend is stuck in the past, but we justify our own ties with 1,000 elaborate reasons. This is one of the great ironies of our journey. We see so clearly the path of others and stumble over our own. Behind everything we hold on to is a fundamental fear, the fear that when we let go, we'll be left empty-handed. We fear emptiness more than we fear the pain of attachment. We hold on tight because, somehow, we believe that it's better to have something painful than to have nothing at all. It's as if we prefer a certainty that hurts to an uncertainty that could heal. The marks left on our hands from holding on to what should have been released tell stories. They are like little invisible scars that we carry, the time that passed while we waited for what never came, the energy we spent trying to fix what was irretrievably broken. If these marks could speak, perhaps they would tell us that they have endured enough. In our moments of sincerity, we know that some doors need to close so that others can open. Endings are inevitable and necessary, but we often react to them as if they were enemies, not teachers. We rarely talk about how scary it is to be on the threshold between letting go of something known and receiving something new. That moment of suspension when your hands are open but still empty. There is an ancient wisdom in the act of opening our hands that we rarely recognize. The fingers that unfold are like petals opening, revealing the center of the palm, a small sacred space of possibilities. Perhaps you have already realized in moments of stillness that open hands can receive blessings that closed hands will never know. Sometimes when I walk along the beach early in the morning, I notice how the sand naturally flows between the fingers of those who try to hold it. No matter how tightly you clench your fist, it finds its way back to where it belongs. Nature constantly teaches us about the natural flow of things, while we stubbornly try to interrupt this flow with our clenched hands. What are we really trying to hold on to? It's rarely the thing itself. More often, it's what we believe that thing represents. We hold on to relationships that have ended not because of the person who has gone, but because of what they symbolized in our history. We cling to old dreams not because of the specific plan, but because of the version of ourselves we imagined we were in that reality. When we begin to see beyond the surface of what we're holding on to, our hands naturally begin to relax. Have you ever observed how trees shed their leaves in autumn? There's no struggle, no resistance, just a gentle letting go when the time is right. The leaves don't cling to the branches out of fear of the unknown. They simply give in to the natural rhythm of the seasons, trusting in the process that created them. Perhaps our attachments can learn something from this silent cycle that happens every year before our eyes. The things we find hardest to let go of are those to which we attribute greater significance than they really have. A job becomes our complete identity. A relationship becomes our only chance of happiness. A mistake from the past becomes the permanent definition of who we are. When we turn something into everything, losing that something feels like losing everything. And who would voluntarily choose to lose everything? There is a subtle but profound difference between carrying a memory and being stuck with it. Think about how you carry your keys. They're in your pocket, you know they're there, but you don't think about them every moment. Now imagine holding those same keys tightly all the time with sore fingers, always aware of their weight. One is to carry, the other is to be dominated. The same goes for our past experiences. Hands that remain closed for too long forget what it's like to open naturally. I've seen fishermen with permanently bent fingers after decades of pulling in nets. Our insides work in a similar way. The longer we hold on to something, the more our soul molds itself to the shape of that attachment. The paradox is that when we finally let go, we first feel discomfort, not relief, as if our being is readjusting to its natural shape. I've observed how children play in the sand on the beach. They build elaborate castles, invest hours of creativity and effort, all the while knowing that the tide will wash everything away. And when it does, there may be a brief moment of sadness, but they are soon ready to build something new tomorrow. Isn't that the wisdom we lose growing up? The intuitive realization that the beauty of something is not in its permanence? We often confuse letting go with giving up. We tell ourselves that we're fighting for what matters, when in fact we're just resisting the natural flow of change. Imagine trying to hold an ice cube with all your might. Not only will it melt anyway, but its warmth will speed up the process. Some things are lost more quickly precisely because of the effort we make to keep them. What we are reluctant to let go of ends up taking up a disproportionate amount of space in our lives. Like a small pebble in our shoe that, despite being tiny, completely dominates our attention at every step. What are you carrying today that, although it may seem small to others, is consuming an enormous amount of your vital energy? Perhaps it's not the size of what we hold, but the time we spend holding it that determines its real weight. There's an old story about a monkey who puts his hand in a jar to grab a handful of peanuts. With his fist full, he can't get his hand out through the narrow opening. To free himself, he has to open his hand and let go of what he has grabbed. How often are we like this monkey? Trapped not by some external force, but by our own refusal to open our hand and let go, preferring prison with what we want of freedom without it. Our mind has a curious trick. It idealizes both what we've lost and what we've never had. That job you didn't get probably wasn't as perfect as it seems now in your memories. That relationship that ended had its daily complications that time has gently erased. Letting go becomes even more difficult when what we're holding on to isn't reality, but a polished and perfected version created by our own mind. Transitions are the most challenging and potent moments of our lives. That space between letting go of one trapeze bar and grabbing the next, a moment of pure emptiness and potential, terrible and marvelous at the same time. It's no wonder we try to avoid this sensation, clinging on to the familiar long past its useful life. But it is precisely in this in-between space that we discover our ability to fly. There is a forgotten generosity in the act of letting go. When we hold on to what no longer serves us, we also prevent it from finding its rightful destination. That book on your shelf that you'll never read again could be inspiring someone right now. That opportunity you're holding on to, even though you know it's not for you, could be perfect for someone else. Sometimes holding on is a subtle form of selfishness that we don't even realize. In ancient cultures, there were release ceremonies, rituals where people symbolically let go of what needed to be left behind. They wrote on leaves that were carried down the river or on paper lanterns that rose into the sky. This recognition of the need for conscious practices to let go shows that our ancestors understood something we often forget. Letting go rarely happens on its own. It needs to be honored, marked, even celebrated as an essential part of the human journey. What happens when we finally open our hands? At first, it may just be a feeling of emptiness, perhaps even loss. The fingers tingle strangely, unaccustomed to the space between them. But then, gradually, something we had forgotten begins to emerge. Lightness. Like a bird landing softly on a branch, the lightness returns to our open palms, reminding us of a sensation we had almost forgotten about for so long. Our relationship with the past is often based on a misconception. We think that in order to honor something or someone, we need to hold on to it forever. But true respect for what we've lived perhaps lies in allowing each experience to touch us, transform us, and then go on its way. The best stories have a beginning, a middle, and an end. A story that doesn't end isn't a complete story, it's just a fragment stuck in time. Have you ever noticed how some physical wounds hurt more when they are starting to heal? Doctors say it's a natural part of the healing process, nerves reconnecting, tissues regenerating. It's the same with our emotional wounds. When we start to let go of what has hurt us, we often feel a temporary intensification of the pain. It's not a signal to turn back, but a confirmation that the real healing has finally begun. There is a difference between remembering and reliving. Remembering is like looking at a photo album. You see the past clearly, but you know you're in the present. Reliving is like being transported back in time, losing awareness of where you are now. Letting go doesn't mean losing the ability to remember fondly or learn from what you've experienced. It just means no longer being involuntarily dragged back to relive what has already passed. Nature knows no waste. Every ending nourishes a new beginning. Falling leaves become nutrients for the next spring. Even stars, when they die, spread their elements throughout the universe, forming the building blocks for new stars. What could you nourish if you allowed certain parts of your life to complete their natural cycle? What new beginnings await the release of energies trapped in incomplete endings? Many ancient traditions talk about exhalation as being just as important as inspiration. We can't just keep breathing, and we need to release the air to create space for the next breath. Something similar happens with our emotional experiences. When we hold on too tightly to the past, it's as if we're trying to live with our lungs always full, without ever fully exhaling. No wonder we feel suffocated. Have you noticed how rarely we talk about the beauty of a well-completed end? We celebrate beginnings, but endings are usually shrouded in silence, as if they were just losses to be endured, not passages to be honored. A glorious sunset is as worthy of admiration as a sunrise. A conscious farewell can carry as much grace as an encounter full of promise. Perhaps we need to relearn the art of ending well. The stories we tell ourselves about why we can't let go often have deep roots. If I let go, it means I've failed. If I let go, I'm betraying someone or something important. This suffering defines me. Who will I be without it? These narratives are not facts. They are interpretations that we have chosen to believe, often unconsciously. And what has been chosen can be questioned and eventually rewritten. There is a wisdom in the body that you often ignore. The hands that ache from holding on, the shoulders tense from carrying invisible weights, the shallow breathing of someone who is always on guard. Your body is trying to tell you something about the cost of not letting go. It's no coincidence that the word relax is linked to the idea of letting go again, returning to a natural state where the muscles don't need to be constantly contracted, where the being can flow freely. Experienced gardeners know the importance of pruning. They remove branches, even those that still have life in them, so that the plant as a whole can thrive. Without this seemingly severe intervention, many plants would become unbalanced, with energy dispersed in too many directions, without the strength to flourish fully. What in your life needs to be pruned, not because it's completely bad, but because it's preventing you from flourishing fully? One of the most liberating discoveries is realizing that letting go doesn't have to be a big dramatic gesture, done all at once. It can be a gradual process, like a river that slowly changes its course. Today you hold on with 9 fingers instead of 10. Tomorrow maybe 8. Every little release counts. Every moment you choose not to reinforce the attachment is a silent victory. The rope doesn't have to be cut suddenly. It can be unraveled, one strand at a time. The most profound transformations rarely happen when we are fighting with all our might. Paradoxically, they occur when we finally stop fighting and allow a wisdom greater than our conscious control to get to work. Like the farmer who plants the seed and then trusts the sun, the rain, and the weather to do the rest. There are times when the greatest act of courage is simply getting your hands out of the way and allowing life to do its work. The body knows how to let go even before the mind agrees. Notice how your shoulders naturally drop during a deep exhale, how your hands open when you fall asleep. There is an intelligence in the body that understands the need to alternate between holding on and letting go. When we feel stuck in something, sometimes the most direct path to release doesn't come first through thought, but through the physical sensation of what it means to be loose. The fear we feel when considering letting go is usually greater than the actual experience of letting go. It's like the child on the trampoline in the swimming pool. The moment of greatest panic is before the jump, not during the fall. Our mind projects catastrophes that rarely materialize. I won't survive this loss. I'll never find anything like it again. I'll completely lose who I am. And yet thousands before us have jumped and found that the water was waiting to receive them. There's a subtle difference between letting go and giving up. Giving up comes from a place of defeat, the slumped shoulders, the broken spirit. Letting go comes from a place of wisdom, the calm realization that this chapter has naturally come to an end, and that this is not a failure, but part of the unfolding of life. One tastes like ashes. The other, although it may bring tears, also carries the flavor of something true and necessary. The great contemplative traditions talk about the difference between pain and suffering. Pain is inevitable, the natural feeling of loss when something comes to an end. Suffering, however, is what we add to the pain with our resistance, our insistence that things should be different than they are. The pain of letting go can be real and deep, but it is often cleaner and more direct than the prolonged suffering of holding on to what is already falling apart in our hands. Many of us carry the implicit belief that if we suffer enough for something, we will somehow deserve that something to come back or be resolved. As if pain were a currency with which we could buy back what we've lost. This magical thinking is rarely examined, but it governs many of our refusals to let go. We don't realize that it is often precisely this voluntary suffering that prevents the arrival of new beginnings. One key to letting go lies in recognizing that we're not just releasing the past, we're creating space for the present. When a cup is full to the brim, nothing more can be added. In the same way, when our hands and hearts are completely occupied with what has gone before, where do we put the offerings of this moment? Every act of letting go is also an act of receiving, of opening up to the fullness of now with its own unique gifts. It has always struck me how certain cultures include farewell rituals in their important moments. The Jew who breaks a glass at the wedding to remind us that even in joy there is fragility. Societies that practice the song of mourning to honor lives that have gone. They recognize something we often forget. We need concrete gestures to mark endings, to make the intangible act of letting go tangible. What small ritual could help you honor what you are leaving behind? A question to contemplate. What would be possible if you were no longer holding on to this? Don't answer quickly. Let the question rest on you. Imagine what your days would be like, your nights, your thoughts when you wake up. How would your physical posture change, the sparkle in your eyes, the tone in your voice? Sometimes the clear vision of what could be released has more power to open our hands than any effort of will. There is an ancient practice found in many traditions, the offering. Taking what you value most, what you are most attached to, and consciously offering it, whether to a deity, the universe, or simply the flow of life. Not to lose it necessarily, but to recognize that it was never really yours to possess. This paradoxical act of giving away what you fear losing often transforms your relationship with what you hold so tightly. Hands that open have a power that closed hands will never know. The power to receive, to caress, to connect in new ways. A closed hand can only strike or grab. An open hand can do infinitely more. It can give and receive. It can feel subtle textures. It can intertwine with other hands. The same happens with our inner being. By letting go, we're not just losing a way of being in the world, we're gaining hundreds of new possibilities. Have you noticed how rarely we give ourselves permission to really feel the sadness of loss? We rationalize, we distract, we rush the process, looking for the lesson or the silver lining straight away. But there is a dignity in simply recognizing, that mattered to me and now it's ending and that hurts. This honest recognition, without immediately trying to turn it into something more acceptable, often opens a door to release that no amount of forced positive thinking could open. Wild animals don't carry emotional wounds like we do. When they escape from a predator, they vibrate and tremble, physically releasing the tension of the trauma, and then move on. They don't mentally revisit the attack. They don't construct stories about what it means for them or their future. There is something to learn from this instinctive wisdom, the realization that some energies need to be released through the body, not just understood by the mind before we can truly move on. One of the great ironies of attachment is that we are often clinging not to the thing itself, but to the person we were when we experienced it. That relationship from our youth that still haunts us, that success from the past that we can never quite get over, we're attached less to them and more to the version of ourselves that existed back then. Recognizing this can be liberating. Perhaps it's not that specific closed door that we regret, but the young man who once stood in front of it, full of possibilities. In ancient forests, when a century-old tree finally falls, something curious happens in the open space it leaves behind. Sunlight, previously blocked by the dense canopy, now reaches the forest floor. Seeds that have been dormant for decades, waiting for just this opportunity, finally germinate. New species that couldn't flourish in the giant's shadow now find their moment. It's a reminder of nature. Where something ends, many new things can begin. Hands have a memory of their own. Craftsmen talk about how their fingers know movements that the conscious mind cannot articulate. In the same way, our emotional hands hold the memory of all previous attachments and releases. Every time you practice letting go, even in small daily gestures like exhaling completely or letting water run between your fingers, you are educating this deep memory, teaching yourself that opening your hands is not only possible, but can become as natural as closing them. A question we rarely ask: what if this ending was exactly what should happen? Not a mistake to be corrected, not a tragedy to be overcome, but a development perfectly aligned with the unfolding of your life? How would your relationship with what you're letting go change if you considered, even for a moment, that this ending is just as meaningful and necessary as any beginning you've ever celebrated? In ancient ceremonies of passage, initiates often had to leave behind a significant personal object before entering the next phase of their lives. This symbolic act recognized a profound truth. We can't become who we are destined to be while holding on tightly to who we were. Every transformation requires a release. Each new territory requires us to let go of the baggage that was useful in the previous terrain, but which would only weigh us down in the new landscape. There is a quality of presence that is only possible when we are no longer divided between here and there, now and then. When part of our energy is constantly flowing into what we hold from the past, we experience the present through a veil, like looking at a landscape through a blurred window. As we let go, the window gradually clears, revealing colors we didn't know were there, details that were always there but invisible to our divided eyes. The stories that move us the most usually involve characters who need to let go of something precious in order to discover something even more valuable. The hero who gives up power to find wisdom. The heroine who abandons security to find freedom. These narratives resonate because they reflect a fundamental pattern of life. We can't always see what awaits us until our hands are free to receive it. The next chapter of your story may be waiting for just such an open space. Our culture often confuses value with possession. If something is truly valuable, the thinking goes we should hold on to it forever. But life's most precious experiences rarely follow this logic. The beauty of a sunset isn't diminished because we can't put it in a box. The power of a moment of deep connection doesn't depend on its permanence. Some things are valuable precisely because of their transitory nature, because of the way they remind us to be fully present while they last. One of the paradoxes of letting go is that we often first need to fully hold on. To fully recognize the value of what we've had, to honor its significance in our lives, to genuinely feel the pain of its passing. Trying to skip these steps usually results in an incomplete release. Something remains unresolved, pulling us back. True liberation rarely comes from minimizing what we're missing, but from recognizing its full value and still choosing to open our hands. Indigenous cultures in various parts of the world have burning ceremonies, rituals where objects, cards, or symbolic representations of attachments are consciously handed over to the fire. Fire transforms but does not completely destroy. Matter changes form, becoming smoke, ash, heat. In the same way, what we let go of doesn't magically disappear from the fabric of who we are. It is transformed, integrated in new ways, becoming part of our wisdom rather than our weight. There is a compassion that is born when we recognize how deeply human it is to hold on. This isn't a personal failure, it's part of the shared experience of being alive, of caring, of investing meaning in the things and people that touch our hearts. As we work to let go of what needs to be released, we can also let go of self-criticism for having held on for so long. The grasping hands need gentleness, not judgment, to learn to open up again. There is a special kind of trust that can only be cultivated through the direct experience of letting go. It's not a trust based on the certainty of specific outcomes, but a deeper trust in the process of life itself. Every time we let go and survive, not just survive, but eventually thrive in ways we couldn't have imagined, we build this trust. It's like a muscle that gets stronger with use, making the next act of letting go a little less terrible, a little more familiar. In the contemplative traditions of the East, the open palm is spoken of as an image for mature wisdom. Neither grasping with desperation, nor pushing away with aversion, just holding gently, allowing things to come when it's time to come and leave when it's time to leave. This quality of allowing things to be as they are is perhaps the most precious fruit of the practice of letting go. It's not indifference. On the contrary, it's a fuller engagement with life exactly as it unfolds, free from the distortion created by our attachments and aversions. In the old stories, the moment when the hero finally lets go of what he has been clinging to, be it a physical object, a limiting belief, or an outdated identity, is not portrayed as a defeat, but as the climax of the journey, the moment of transformation. Something similar happens in our lives. What initially seems like surrender is often revealed as a passage to a deeper level of freedom and possibility. At the heart of loss lies a seed of discovery, waiting patiently for our open hands to find it.